Jayson Tatum drops 51 points. No one in Celtics history has scored 50 as many times as Jayson Tatum. History made. Also, the 7th win in a row made in Charlotte. I'll be talking about it all. What does this mean right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast?
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I'm here for you every day, minus a little kind of weird kind of beginning of the week thing due to the holiday and the early start, but I am here for you Monday through Friday, plus bonus podcasts with a free, fresh podcast dropped directly to your device if you're a subscriber. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch the show on YouTube. You can join a growing Celtics community there in the comments section. I'm John Karalis. I want to thank you for making this show your first listen every day. I cover the Celtics now for Boston Sports Journal, and doing this after the Boston Celtics get their 7th straight win, 130-118 over the Charlotte Hornets, thanks to a casual ho-hum 51-point night from Jayson Tatum. So lots to get to with this. Let's bring in a special, because it's the early game. We get to do a special podcast with Tom Westerholm because I'm not recording at 3 a.m.
Yeah, we're all celebrating a 1 p.m. start. I mean, what's going to be the first sports league that sees the Premier League and is like, this is the most pleasant experience that American sports fan can have. Having a game on when everybody's supposed to be working, but you don't want to be, so you've actually, you got something to watch. More 1 p.m. games. I'm all about it. I loved it.
I'm all about it.
Jayson Tatum is all about it.
Yeah, man. Stepped up for a 1 p.m. game, and he just – obviously, let's just start with the biggest story here. He just looked – when you say unstoppable, sometimes people there's a little hyperbole going in there, but he literally unstoppable in this game. Charlotte tried to blitz him. They tried everything. And no matter what he did, aside from early on, there was a turnover, but that's all I can think about. It was basically he just did whatever he wanted.
Literally whatever he wanted. It was honestly, it was kind of funny watching Charlotte try to handle him because you felt for them, right? It's okay, clearly Jaden McDaniels is not a good match for Jayson Tatum. He can't do anything about him. But what other options did they have? And Tatum realized that very quickly. I thought one of the best things he did was, 3 of his 5 assists came in the first quarter. And it's that's one of the best ways that he can really just get a team off balance, show them hey, you can't double me because I'll just start passing. And if you don't have a one-on-one guy who can stop Jayson Tatum and you can't double him,
right?
I don't know what you're saying. And he's making threes, then I really don't know what you're supposed to do. So, it's over, right? And so I think for me, one of the big takeaways is if I'm Jayson Tatum, I'm looking at that game and I'm saying to myself, okay, if I can get everybody else going early, let everybody else get established because all your shots are going to come. They're going to come within the flow of the game. And if you get some of those guys, if you get some of these blitzes off you by passing out of them, by moving the ball, even if it doesn't result in your assist, which, it often did. But even if it doesn't result in your assist, that's just cash down the line for you. That's just building up, kind of easy money. Once the game is coming down the wire and they just, they got nothing they can throw at you. If they can't double. So yeah, really impressive performance by him.
That's the whole thing. And this does speak to some of the whole concept of chasing versus letting the game come to you.
Yeah.
And forcing things early. And we've seen, there's not a star out there, there's not a player out there who hasn't said, I have kind of a little off lately. I need to go out there and just see if I can find my shot early on. Now, I contend that that's not the way they should ever do it. They should do a little more of what Tatum did a little bit in this game. It's hey, you want to double me? Okay. You want to blitz me all the way out to half court? Okay, no problem. That means you're gonna have to play 4-on-3 with the rest of these guys, and you don't not notice, but there's Derrick White, there's Al Horford, there's Robert Williams, there's Marcus Smart out there, and you want to go play 4-on-3 because Jayson Tatum minus your best defender, putting that, or your two best defenders, putting those 4 on your 3, that's bad. That's a bad trade-off, man. And you see them pay for it, and you realize like, oh, okay, we actually can't do that. And then you're screwed after that. And so Tatum is playing the way a star should play. Let the defense go out and do what they're going to do. And then once the defense has to adjust, you kill them. And that's what he did this whole game. It was really impressive. One of the best games I've seen Tatum play in a long time.
And I think you hit it exactly right. I think it's the patience that really set it apart. There was one play, I think it was in the second quarter, where he and Smart were up at the top of the key. Smart passes to Brogdon in the corner, and it's like, okay, so Smart just passed to Brogdon, who's being guarded by Dennis Smith. So you're looking at a all-star potential, like all-star caliber player against a second string point guard. Brogdon gets by him, passes, and the help comes, kicks it to the corner. There's Al Horford, the best corner 3-point shooter in the NBA right now. Well, Horford, so everybody closes to him. Horford swings it to Tatum. All of a sudden you've got a top 3 MVP candidate taking a wide open 3. And it's just like, I mean, Tatum is the quality of Tatum's teammates makes everything so much easier for him especially when everything is just working in that kind of symbiosis, right? And I mean, Tatum is the engine of that. So sometimes you do understand, like you said, sometimes if he's off, you can understand why he wants to go searching a little bit, why he wants to find it, because this all starts with having a top 3 MVP candidate. But then the rest of the pieces around him, everybody can do so much on the court. Everybody's so good at what they do. It's a tough squad right now. And Karalis, I'm just going to come out and say it. They are a lot better than the Charlotte Hornets. If they see the Charlotte Hornets in the playoffs, I think they are going to win that series.
Bold take that the Boston Celtics are better than the Charlotte Hornets, who are the 11-win Charlotte Hornets. This is Boston's.
Hey, that's play-in territory, man. That might be a first-round matchup. You never know.
Third win. It could be. It could be a first-round matchup. Could be. You never know with these guys. Look, this is the exact example, and people might be sick of me saying this phrase, but I bet the regular listeners can repeat it with me right now. They know what I'm going to say. When you make the right plays, the right players get the right stats. And Tatum made the right plays over and over and over again. And how many times, like you just said, did the right play result in him getting the ball back, him getting a better look at the, and I understand, if you're playing against the Milwaukee Bucks, it's not going to go like this. It's not always going to go like this. If you're playing against the Bucks, some of those early offense shots, you're going to have to take those because those are going to be the best looks you're going to get. However, against the Hornets, you got to go in knowing all right, let's just slow it down. Let's work it a little bit. And when the opportunity comes, I at some point in this possession, I'm going to get this shot. I'm going to get the one that I'm looking for. So that I think is how Tatum gets the 51 points, by just letting it flow and being patient and letting that jumper come to him. And he took 12, but I think he took 12 because they were starting to fall. He had 11 points in the first quarter. He was 0 for 3 from 3. Yeah. So he went 7 of 9 the rest of the way. And getting to the line, getting getting to the rim and realizing like, oh, these guys can't stop me. There's nobody there to protect the rim. Once you understand that, it gets pretty easy.
Real quick before you throw it to break. There was one play where Mason Plumlee, like I felt so bad for him because he was leaning so far in the wrong direction when Tatum crossed him over. It just looked so painful. It's like, poor man, that's not what Mason Plumlee's out there to do, man. He can't do anything.
That was not great for Mason Plumlee. That was sick. All right, let's take a second. We'll come back with more here. But first, let's talk about Rocket Money. You know, it's a new year. You got the new goals of being a little bit better about your money. You want to save a few bucks. You want to be better about being more prudent with your spending. Yeah, but you've got all these subscriptions and stuff out there, and you need some help to get a handle on things. And that's where Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, comes in. It is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lowers your bill. All bills, plural, all in one place. You know, over 80% of people have subscriptions that they have forgotten about. Like me, I have too many. I got them all over the place. And those streaming services can just pile up. Those free trials that never end just pile up. So Rocket Money can easily identify those subscriptions for you. You can just hit cancel, and they will cancel it for you. No sitting there, no waiting on hold. That's like the reason why so many people don't cancel. I just don't even want to call. So over 3 million people have used Rocket Money. It saves them an average of about $720 per year. So stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions. Manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. That's rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Make Locked On Game to Game your second listen every day. Locked On Game to Game. It's on the Locked On NBA feed. It's 1 minute or so from each side of the game. So whoever wins, whoever loses, you get each side of the story. It's over there in the Locked On NBA feed. So when you subscribe to Locked On NBA, subscribe to Locked On Game to Game. Great way to get caught up on the league. Let's bring Tom Westerholm back in to discuss the rest of this game. And let's just start with this. First of all, history for Tatum. He is now the most 50-point games in Celtics history, and 7 overall for him. 5 regular season, 1 in the playoffs, and 1 in that weird netherworld of play-in game. But 7 50-point spots for a 24-year-old guy. I know he has the benefit of the three-pointer and like Larry Bird didn't and all of that, but it's just remarkable what he's able to do historically. Just with his scoring.
At some point, and I don't think we've reached it yet. He hasn't led the team to a title or anything like that. But I'm curious at if he stays, assuming he stays in Boston and everything else, I'm curious at what point we have to start having really interesting conversations about where he stacks up in Celtics history. Because again, we're not there yet. It's been, he's only, he's young. There's, he's got a lot of winning to do before we really get into some of those conversations. But I mean, if he keeps winning, if he stays in Boston, they're coming because he is just a really, really special basketball player. And I know I'm not saying anything groundbreaking by saying that, but we've talked about it before on this pod. Like, these types of players don't come around all the time, and they don't come around often. Right. I think when you look at a player of his caliber, you have to start going back to like Bird, right? You have to start going back to those guys who were top 3 in the NBA. The Celtics just have not had. Most teams don't have those guys. When you have a top 3 player in the league, most teams don't have that guy. So, it's just it's staggering to watch, man. It's a lot of fun to watch it on like a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, man. I like the progression. He's such an interesting player as far as the progression that he's made. And I make this comparison all the time. I always talk about him in regards to like Luka Doncic, who dominates and has this incredible feel and just came into the league that way. And Tatum has grown into that. And I think they're in similar places. I still think Luka is ahead of him as far as just the way he can control a game.
Yeah.
He's not there yet. So he's behind Luka and he's behind Jokic as far as how he can control a game. And then there's like he's in that conversation. So what is he? The third best, the fourth best, the fifth best player in the league? Like that. It's interesting because you don't see guys grow into it quite like this the way they have. But that's a conversation for like as we continue on. Let's get back
to
but
I just want to point out that growth makes it even interesting. It makes it more interesting when he's doing stuff like that, like sideways lob to Rob Williams that he threw in the second half, right? Because like those areas of growth, that pick and roll, like that attacking these, these double teams and all that stuff, that all of that is part of that growth. And it's the type of thing that puts him, down the line on the Luka level, on the Jokic level. I mean, we'll see, but like that's kind of where it goes next, right? We know he can score. So when he can facilitate like that, when he can be that ball dominant guy who is also a scorer, who can also defend, I think that's where this goes next to me.
Yeah.
So
anyway. And look, his ability to defend is part of the big thing with him. But look, you get into this first quarter of this game, and he has 11 points without a three, and he's finding ways to impact, to do not just score 11 points, but to do other things and have those 3 assists. But let's start with this. They open the game with a Derrick White to Marcus Smart alley-oop. Where did that come from? Is it just one of those, hey, we're going to prove that there's nothing like people are anybody who said Marcus Smart, he intentionally ran into Derrick White. I've just seen a couple of people say that. Like, let's just get a play between those two. Just like, okay, everything's good there. Let's kind of just show that off, and then we'll just go from there. Just wild.
Side note, I did not know that was a conversation. If you,
oh yeah,
that's
Tom. Everything's a conversation online.
Yeah, that's true. But that was funny, man. That was, I mean, like, and I think a lot of times you see the Celtics run something that involves, when Robert Williams starts, I think you see them run something that involves him a lot of the time early on, just kind of get that first lob out of the way, or first, like play that could have been a lob, but he moves it out of the way. But no, this, like, I don't think anybody saw a lob to Marcus Smart coming like that. Marcus Smart is many things, but for an NBA player, he is not a bouncy individual. So that was very funny to watch.
I mean, I think he's bouncier than people give him credit for. Well, I get look as I'm talking here, I have to apologize to anybody watching on YouTube because the way this is being recorded, I can see myself out of sync, and it catches up eventually, but all of a sudden I'm like 3 seconds behind what I'm saying and what people are seeing. So sorry about that.
It's throwing me off too, guys. I promise.
It's throwing me off as well. All right, so this game was almost like the flip of the first game, where the Celtics struggled early, and in the second quarter they found themselves and pulled away. And then in this one, they started off fine. So the first half was like the second half of the last game, and then they flipped, and it was kind of weird too, because it took one of those possessions where they got 3 offensive rebounds, 2-3 offensive rebounds, and it was just like a 37-second possession. And then they got the basket, and that was like the deflating, Clifford calls a timeout. It was like an 8-2 run. And that's kind of where they started to get a little bit of the separation. Credit to the Hornets for not giving up. But the Celtics, I think, let off the gas a little bit. They just like, okay, we're up 17 here in the third quarter. Like, it's all right, we're good. And then, Plumlee has a different idea, and McDaniels has a different idea, and then all of a sudden it gets down to 2. But they responded well. I thought. I honestly, I didn't have an issue. I thought that they were going to relax. This is kind of like par for the course. And I didn't expect that kind of fight from the Charlotte Hornets. I don't think the Celtics did. But, hey, when it came down to it, they went and they made the big plays. Luke Kornet was big. Derrick White was big. Brogdon was like all of those guys were big in that stretch.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, it really helps when you have a guy who's going off, you have a guy who it's just like automatic, reliable offense whenever he touches the ball because he can either score or he can create, out of like if they're double teaming him or whatever. When the other team is kind of making a little bit of a push, when the Hornets were making a little bit of a push, it still felt pretty safe just because you were kind of like, all right, like there's a button the Celtics can push here. Like if they just go poke that, like do push the Jayson Tatum button and then they'll be okay. And that's kind of what they did. But I mean, to your point though, I mean, there were like a bunch of guys, especially in the first half. Malcolm Brogdon had a really, really good first half. I thought having Derrick White back, like I'm obviously very happy to see him back just for health reasons, but also just like sneaky been one of the most fun players to watch on the team recently. Just like if you just kind of like track his progress through the game, it's like he just kind of floats to the right spot, makes the right play, then floats to the next right spot and makes that right play. Like he's never, he's never like hitting the jet. I mean, sometimes, but generally speaking, it's not like he's like flying everywhere. He just kind of has a great sense of where to be. I've really enjoyed him. I thought he was really good today too. But I think the thing that interested me most about that first half, and especially the first quarter, was that starting lineup. I think probably needs to get some run. Like I don't know, I don't think obviously it's not going to continue to start because when Jaylen comes back, he'll be back in there. But I thought that was a nice look. Like a lot of defense, some solid shooting and plenty of outlets for Tatum. Like that's a tough lineup, and they'd only played 14 possessions before tonight, before this afternoon all season. So I'd be curious to give that a little bit more of look with the double bigs and Smart and White.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how Mazzulla kind of works those rotations, and let's save this for the next segment because one of my takes after the game was credit to Joe Mazzulla for finessing the conversation out of us that, maybe Robert Williams won't start. Like, you son of a, we actually dedicated like a podcast to that. And then you see him starting. We always knew the start and Jaylen and Marcus were hurt and all of that stuff. But you look at him starting and you go, oh, of course he was going to start. Let's we'll save that conversation for just a minute. First, today's show brought to you by BetOnline.net, your number one source for sports betting information, your stats, your news, your analysis, all that stuff. If you're looking to drop a couple of bucks on a game, you got to go to BetOnline.net because you get the latest odds, you get the trends, you get all of that for professional leagues around the world, amateur leagues as well. Football playoffs, what a wild football weekend it was. It's all there at betonline.net. They also have sports podcasts, which we know you love since you're here and you're listening to these words. It's all there at BetOnline as well. It's the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head on over to the website today. You can do it on your mobile device if you'd like. BetOnline, where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. So we're talking rotations here, and look, you start with Rob, and Scal has been talking about this. The spacing has been better with Rob out there because you've got a guy that demands attention in the middle of the floor. And so you can drive, and if anybody comes over, you lob it to him. It forces the defense into a decision. And 4 out is I agree with Scal. I like 4 out better than 5 out because it's just a little bit more room to move out there. Yep. And it does force defenses into some decisions. Rob was very impactful early. I think we're seeing Rob making impacts early, and then when teams worry about him, maybe he has a little bit less. Like the lobs aren't there all the time, but there's still kind of he has a huge impact in this game. So after the game, like I said before, I wrote like nice job, Joe. You finessed this into the conversation, but it's very obvious that he has to start. But now you have when Jaylen comes back in a week or so. You have this conversation of, well, who is better to start the second quarter? And do you, because of this lineup that you just saw, you have Tatum and Derrick and Smart with the two bigs. Well, if you just sub Jaylen out, if you move Derrick to the bench and you sub Jaylen out and you put Derrick in there, at the 6-minute mark. It's only 6 minutes into the game, and you let that run for the next few minutes, and then you can bring Jaylen in and Tatum out, and maybe you have Jaylen and Derrick in there for a little stretch with Brogdon and however else you want to run it. Grant, and I don't know about Sam Hauser at this point, but do we want to take a second as a diversion to like apologize for having the redraft conversation about Sam Hauser? No, you're digging in. You're digging in.
I'm digging in. The shot's going to come back. You think he's this bad at shooting? I don't think he's this bad at shooting. I think it's coming back around. And when it does, he's going to be a useful rotation player again.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. That's fine.
I need it to happen, man. People are starting to chirp me. People are starting to chirp me on Twitter. It's going to get ugly if if this continues. And I'm going to deserve it.
Yeah. All right. But okay. So I'm very curious to see, do you still go with, because Mazzulla's kind of hinted that Jaylen with the second unit is like starting the second quarters with Jaylen and Brogdon, and however you want to run that second unit is kind of a thing that he's trying to do or starting to do. So I'm kind of curious to see how that all plays out moving forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely. And I think, so in your starting lineup, then you would have the double big with Jaylen, Jayson, and Smart.
Yeah,
that's
Jaylen, Jayson, Smart, Jaylen, Jayson, Smart, and double big. And
so
then
we're not totally ready to talk about Al Horford coming off the bench yet. I understand.
Okay, so no, I think Al is just such a smart player. I'm not ready for Al Horford to come off the bench.
That's reasonable.
Let's do this. Let's just save this because we're talking about a post game here, and we're drifting into great day off content. Let's just save this. We'll save this for tomorrow, and kind of like they're not playing tomorrow. Tomorrow's a travel day. They get a couple days off. The dreaded 2 days off before a game for the Celtics. Let's just focus on this game because what we've seen in this game is I like the double bigs. I like the way they work together. I like Al has been able to make an impact, and you saw one bit that dunk that he had late in the game. I forget, third or fourth quarter. The dunk. It's the one dunk that he had. When you see a team kind of like worried about, oh crap, there's Al Horford, and he's able to put the ball on the floor and make a play like that when you've got the floor spaced. So, and then at the same time, he had the same exact play earlier where he threw a little lob to Robert Williams.
Yep.
And that the first play was the lob. And so then the next time he did that, they stuck with Rob, and he's, all right, fine, I'm just going to dunk it on you then. That's the impact that Robert Williams has on the game that you don't see in the box score. You don't see that. So I like, and just Al Horford is just so smart. I can't believe I just talked myself. I did the same thing. I said, well, let's talk about it tomorrow. And I made my exact argument today. But that was a big moment for Al.
Absolutely. And I think it's been fun to kind of watch, when you, before the season, you can talk about, okay, like Al Horford can do all this, Rob Williams can do all this. Those things should work nicely together. And then it's fun when it actually happens. And like, you just like watch it and you're like, yeah, that's how that should work. It should, like the one guy is really good at shooting threes and moving the ball around the perimeter and passing out of the short roll and all this stuff that Al Horford does so well. And then the other guy is, this really, he makes these kind of odd passes that you wouldn't, necessarily see coming, but like they kind of scramble the defense, but he's also like, 2 feet above the rim, and he's, just hanging out in the dunker spot, and he's giving you all this vertical spacing. And, just that pairing on paper should work as well as it is working, which is cool to see. I looked up the numbers last year. They were 14 points per 100 possessions, outscoring about that 2-man lineup was outscoring opponents by 14 points. This year it's 13.1. Like we have 2 years of essentially the exact same evidence that this double big lineup is really good, and it's fun to watch. Like it makes a lot of basketball chemistry, geometry type sense. It's good. I think that Mazzulla did hoodwink us, and part of that is because they have so many good players on this team that you could make a pretty logical case for a lot of guys to start.
Sure.
But like this is what it should be. These two guys is probably what it should be.
Yeah, they do have a lot of good guys. They've got a lot of great players. Malcolm Brogdon, who did all his damage in the first half of this game, but still was pretty good. Nice to see Malcolm Brogdon's shot coming back. Look, the Celtics, I feel like one of the beauties of this 7-game winning streak, after all of the stuff that they went through. So they go through, they have this big beginning to the season, and then they play the Warriors, and they hit a real skid for a few weeks. And side note, I can't believe people are pushing back on this notion that the Celtics have had a little bit of a spiral against bad teams. Like, they've had a bunch of games against teams that they should have beaten, and they didn't. And for some reason, people are like coming back at me saying like, no, Orlando's actually not bad. I don't know. Okay, see, look at all the teams they're beating. Like, come on. Like but the Celtics they're the best team in the league. Anyway, another diversion for me. It's in this 7-game winning streak. It's been a bunch of different ways to win a game versus at the beginning, it was just shoot the crap out of the ball and just beat everybody by shooting 50-something% and 40-something% from three. They've won games in these 7 games by shooting 28%. In this game, they've shot 46.5%. Tatum was 7 of 12, but you get 4 of 8 out of Brogdon. You get 3 out of 7 out of Derrick White. You get 2 out of 4 out of Horford, 2 out of 4 out of Grant. They've been able to win these games in a lot of different ways. And I think that's the growth of this team. And you can say the stuff that they went through was actually pretty perfectly timed because you learn those lessons at the end of December and you apply them in January and you go, okay, now we get it. We don't have to shoot lights out to win anymore.
Well, not only that, you've built yourself perfectly timed because you started the season red hot. You get you get yourself a nice little lead in the standings to where a little slip doesn't really matter. You go on a nice 7-game winning streak and you're back up to, 4.5 games above whoever's in second place. Like that's just perfect timing that way. But to your point though, I mean, that's exactly what Mazzulla said after the game. That was, like his biggest takeaway is like they are finding ways to win in a bunch of different ways. It's not just the shooting, it's the defense, it's it's kind of all these different things that they can do now that they're starting to get all their guys back in the lineup. They can win when guys are out of the lineup, right? Like they can win without Jaylen. They can win without Smart if they need to. They can win without Derrick White for most of the second half if they have to. Like they've got all of these different ways that they can do it. Peyton Pritchard can come in and pitch in a little bit. All these different things can happen, and they can still win games. So I mean, it's just this current stretch. If I'm the Celtics, I'm feeling so much better about this because when they were shooting, look, as much as I keep talking about like Sam Hauser's going to get his shot back, 58% or whatever they were shooting from three just was not going to continue to sustain. Obviously that wasn't going to continue no matter how good the ball movement was, no matter how much, how much they collapsed the defense, wasn't going to happen. But this is different. Like these wins that they're getting are sustainable. They are, showing like how good this team is as a collective, how good their individual players are. And when you start to put together all those pieces, everything just makes a lot more sense.
Jayson Tatum drops 51, they win. Jaylen Brown drops 40 plus, they win. Malcolm Brogdon 30 points off the bench, they win.
Yep.
And like this is now I'll end it with this. Think about the rest of the East. Here comes Brooklyn. Oh my God, here comes Brooklyn. They're within a half game. Oh my God. Then Durant predictably gets hurt. I mean, it's a weird injury. Like Jimmy Butler fell into him. But regardless, they weren't going to stay healthy. And here they are, lose a couple of games. Now they're 4.5 games out all of a sudden. Milwaukee, Giannis misses a few games, 4.5 games out. Philly's got their act together. They've won 7 out of 10 and 2 in a row. Can't make any progress. Still 5 games out. Cleveland hits a little bit of a skid, a little bit of 500 basketball. 5.5 games out now. This is where the great teams separate themselves. And it's a missed opportunity for the rest of the league to say, you had Boston and they went through their crap, and now they're figuring things out again. Nice that they are facing a couple of bad teams along the way. Nice that they've been able to figure it out, but the way they've been able to figure it out has been this might be the most encouraging stretch. Even though it's 2 wins against Charlotte, it's the most encouraging stretch for this team because it's been a little bit of everybody. Tom, just go down the list. Just go down the Tatum impact, Alford impact, Robert Williams impact in these 2 games. Derrick White, Marcus Smart, Grant Williams. Well, maybe Grant not so much. He's got to get rid of those floaters. Brogdon, Pritchard not great in this game, made an impact. Sam Hauser, okay, he hasn't had a great game. Luke Kornet. Celtics don't need another big. They got Luke Kornet in there. He's playing great in that role. In the role that he's being at, 11 minutes of Luke Kornet plus 6 in those 11 minutes. Perfecto. Love it. Yep. That's awesome. Like it's not perfect, but they're winning. And that's the big thing.
Yep. That's all, the big thing. That's the big thing. That's what you're trying to do in the NBA, John Karalis.
The National Basketball Association. Or, as the cool kids say, the association.
The association. The 2K kids say the association.
That's right. Yeah. I'm ending my association with Tom Westerholm for this podcast.
All right.
Goodbye, Tom.
Goodbye.
Thanks to Tom Westerholm for hopping on. Love the early game. Allows us an early recording of the podcast. Thank you for hopping on. Sorry for the technical issues. Just don't know what's happening there with the out of sync stuff. It's going to be a little odd in this one. Try to fix it if I can figure it out. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. I hope if you are not a subscriber, you enjoyed it enough to subscribe. If you are a subscriber, I hope you enjoyed it enough to share the podcast, spread the word, tell your friends and family, and I don't know, enemies, whatever, that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.